originally opened, and just because there'll be Eric and Cherry.
Yes. Okay. I recognise people. I'm testing you now. You probably don't know who I am, but that's all. That one's is it?
Oh, that sun's nice, isn't it?
Welcome everyone to this great occasion. Doesn't she look brilliant? We'll have David Cook is going to speak. He is married to Cherry Coles, who is Frank's daughter.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege and honour to represent the family of the last Coles to actually own the building, and at this opening of a renovated Coles factory, and to firstly thank the members of the Onga Onga Historic Society for the fantastic effort that has gone into the project to retain this significant property for the village. I've been asked to provide a little history about the factory and the businesses that flourished here. A little over 146 years ago, Edward Perkis Coles and his wife Clara Louisa and their 12 children sailed from Gravesend on the 4th of May 1877 on board the bark Columbus, and after an eventful voyage over 3 months, arrived in Auckland on August 15th. It seems particularly apt to me that they came on a ship named after Columbus, a man who also went looking for a new world. On the 22nd of August 1877, they landed in Napier, and on the instructions in a letter from their sponsor, Mr. Henry Hamilton Bridge Street you're all standing on, they immediately departed for Ongonga. The Coles Workshop was subsequently established in 1878, and for most of us, the most famous photo is the one from around 1908, with a number of the staff standing outside. The factory is painted today with the same graphics, and I noted recently on the Onga Historic Society webpage, there is a restaging of that photograph with all the volunteers who've been working here. It's worth going on to have a look. I first knew the factory when I came to Onga in the early 60s when courting my wife Sherry. To me, a basic townie, it was a magical place that really came alive when Dad Coles, that's Frank, pulled a lever and a large electric motor set the axles across the building returning, and all the pulleys and wheels and belts started to hum and click. It was sort of magical. I felt the factory actually came alive when he did that. Originally the belts were driven by a large steam engine with a boiler that was heated by a coke fire. Charles Coles, that's Frank's father, who held the stationary engine certificate, had the unenviable job of doing this at 6 a.m. each morning. Work in the factory started at 7:30 with the ringing of a bell. The Coles building businesses in Onga covered a period that lasted 86 years. It went through 3 phases. EP had sons William, Ernest, Charles, George and Frederick. Frederick, incidentally, was born 2 weeks after they arrived in Ongonga. So Clara was heavily pregnant at the time, obviously. They all worked for him along with other tradesmen. On EP's retirement in 1903, William, Ernest, Charles and George formed a partnership, although Ernest withdrew after a year and went to work on his own account in Ormondville. He made shifts to Wanganui and then to Papatoetoe as a builder. Coles brothers extended the family involvement with sons and sons-in-law being apprenticed and working for the firm. Edward, Vernon, Jack and Frank Coles and Les McFarlane were all involved in the building work, with daughters Audrey and later Meta looking after the bookwork. Later grandsons Morris and James Coles joined in. It is recorded that in 1913 there were 23 men working for Coles brothers. The First World War and then the Depression years took their toll, and they struggled through with less work than in prime years when the big Central Hawke's Bay runs, Fairfield, Forest Gate, Mount Vernon and Spring Hill, were being divided up into smaller farms from 1899 to 1914. Frank Coles had worked for the Coles brothers until about 1923 and then went to work for Ernest in Papatoetoe, a stint in Sydney and Melbourne, and in 1928 returned to Havelock North until 1935 when he moved back to Onga. He took the opportunity to buy the firm as the partners retired. Up to the Second World War, building work was plentiful, and at one stage there were 18 tradesmen employed. However, shortages of materials and manpower in the war years cut back the operation. After the war, there was ample work for the 6 men employed to work on farmhouses and farm buildings. In the late 50s, an accident saw Frank Coles out of action for over 2 years. And with the retirement of Jack and Morris, the firm was reduced to 1 until son Mark took up an apprenticeship which was completed by 1963, and it was time for Frank to retire. The Coles of Ongonga building firm closed after 86 years and 3 generations. Of the 4th generation, Mark worked for various builders and then went out on his own. One of his early builds was our house in Taradale, but most of his work has been in Hastings and latterly Havelock North. I think it is an indication of the quality of his work when a house is advertised in a real estate listing as a Mark Coles house. As I said at the beginning, the Frank Coles family are really pleased and thankful that this part of their history has been preserved. I know that all the grandchildren that visited when it was still owned have tales to tell of time in the factory and the woodworking and the life skills passed on. Congratulations again to all the team that helped to make this day possible. Thank you.
Well done. Thanks, David. I'd like to extend a special welcome to the extended Coles family. I know can all Coles relatives put their hands up out there, please, just to give us an idea of... Great. Please make yourself known to us throughout the day. Her Worship the Mayor, Alex, thanks so much for giving up your time to come out here and help us celebrate this today. Thank you very much. And a very special welcome to Pauline Mackey, our past president for 18 years and life member. It is indeed a very special day for the Coles families, the community of Onga Onga, and indeed Central Hawke's Bay, but none more so than the members of the Onga Onga Historical Society. Eric Scholdemer, our project manager, and our Friday volunteers who assisted Eric along the way with this restoration. We must also be mindful of the attempts by previous society members to restore the building. Juliet Holden in the 1980s, along with architect Guy Nartouche and long-time resident George Watts, Mace, a previous staff member of the Coles. All of these people worked tirelessly to pursue the possibility of the restoration of this building. It was in this time, on September the 1st, 1983, that the Coles factory was listed as a Category 1 with the historic places on the Heritage New Zealand list. Greg and Ann Frater purchased the property in 1985, and during this time, Greg re-roofed the front gabled section. There's a photo of Greg somewhere up on that roof. No scaffolding, no rope, I presume, but Greg's up there lifting the iron and replacing the new sections. Materials were supplied by the Historic Places Trust, the local historic society, once again led by Juliet Holden, again with the support of architect Guy Nartouche, funded the painting and the sign writing of the frontage of the building at that time. In 2015, in order to secure the building's future and to enable adequate funds for its restoration, Greg and Anne were mindful that the building, Frater that is, mindful that the building needed to come out of private ownership. Therefore, in 2016, and I've just found out today that our past president, Pauline, was about to approach them as regards having the society take over the building. So that was interesting. But so they were mindful of the building needing to come out of private ownership. Therefore, in 2016, they gifted their much-loved factory and outer buildings to the local historical society in return for $1 coin. And some work was carried out in the next couple of years. In 2018, the society decided if they were going to get serious about the restoration, the building needed to have a focus on it. And so on Labour Weekend 2018, the west wing of the building was opened up to the public. This part of the building was thoroughly checked over and considered safe enough to allow visitors through. Although we hadn't banked on over 200 people that we had through that day, it was a great success. Funds. Our first fundraising venture was in October 2017, when the Society won first prize with the float in the float section of the 150-year celebrations of the Waipakarau Primary and District. And that was followed by the occasional high tea that were also very successful. The reality now was that to get the restoration underway, we would need more funding quickly and native timber, and lots of it. For funding, it was decided that we should apply to the Lotteries Commission. And for us to do this, we knew we would need to raise a percentage of funds ourselves. So in September 2019, we ran our very first Ongonga Victorian Market and Fair, led by our stall organiser, Rita Sheltimer, and what a huge job that was. And with the high tea, cake stalls, games, our own sales stall and donations, our fundraising had begun. Another high tea was held, and then a second Victorian market was held in October 2020. Now this one, right up until about a fortnight out, because COVID was about, Rita had once again done all the hard work in organising stall holders, etc., and it looked as though we were going to have to can that one as well. But I remember docking up at Kiddos and having my radio with me, and the day that message came through that everything was lifted and we were able to go ahead was a huge relief. So our second Victoria Market was held in October 2020. Again, a major success, especially in terms of putting the society, the Coles building and the village of Onga firmly on the map. Upwards of 12,000 people had attended these two events. Another event was organised for 2021, and after stalls had once again been organised by Rita, and everything set in place for our biggest fundraiser yet, because in the first two fundraisers we had never charged an entry fee, and this year we thought we might just ask for a gold coin donation. And we thought, well, that would really get us on the way and get us over the rope for our fundraising here. COVID had the final say. And the day was cancelled a fortnight out, much to the disappointment of all concerned. We were still a little short of funds to be able to apply to the lotteries. But with Rita's persistence and Craig Ireson's guidance and willingness of the CHB District Council to underwrite our grant application, which the Lotteries Commission kindly accepted, it was now all go. And this was November 2020. Native timber, prior and in anticipation that the restoration would go ahead, and after being offered several buildings with sound native timber, demolition began. Firstly with the Naruru stables in 2017-18, then Paul Dakin's stables on Highway 50, followed by the big job of demolishing the Showgrounds A&P building. Eric was to the fore as our project manager with the A&P demolition, and he really was. I mean, Eric wouldn't let us demolish it, but we had to denial everything he demolished. To all of those who donated buildings, timber, vehicles and trailers to cart the materials from these sites. Before I conclude, I would like to thank a number of people for their efforts and support in this project. Firstly, Greg and Anne Frater for gifting this wonderful building to the Society to share with the rest of Central Hawke's Bay. The Lotteries Commission for accepting our application. Craig Ireson's guidance in helping Rita put the application together. That was tremendously helpful. And the Central Hawke's Bay District Council for underwriting our lotteries grants application and showing confidence in the ability of the Society to get the job done. The Council's involvement and support in our local history is second to none. Our project manager, Eric Sheltimer. When Eric and Rita arrived here and became members in 2018, little did we know the influence they would have on getting this historic building back to where it is today. Eric's meticulous attention to detail, knowledge and passion for heritage buildings couldn't have suited us better. Before we were able to employ Eric as our project manager for the restoration, he spent hours and hours of voluntary work with the Friday volunteers and many on his own, either in preparation for the restoration or demolishing buildings for the native timber to be used. Rita's hard work initially with the stall organisation for the markets for fundraising, then working alongside Craig to put our lotteries grant application together, always looking elsewhere for funding, just the perfect combination for this project. All the while, Rita waiting for her new kitchen at home, which I am happy to say is now all but completed. Along the way, the Society was nominated by the Central Hawke's Bay District Council for 2 categories in the Hawke's Bay Heritage Awards with this building. The Society were winners in the Heritage Tourism Award category and highly commended in the Saved and Restored section. The Hastings Toy Theatre, who had a slightly larger budget and resources to work with. We were delighted to be first mentioned in the highly commended section. These were great achievements for Eric and the Society. Thank you, Eric and Rita. We are very fortunate that all of our committees, this is headed our sign writer, we are very fortunate that all of our committees have talent in some direction. No exception is our sign writer and head of Onga TV, where is he? In the doorway there? Ian Cookson. Ian is responsible for the newly completed sign writing out the front of the building, just as you can see up here, just as it was all those years ago. Thanks, Ian. The Paint Shop Movie Theatre, Brian Connor. When sitting in our little paint shop theatre here, we've called it the Paint Shop because when we started renovating or restoring in here, that appeared to be where all the paint was. But we do believe that that was probably, David, the first section of the building. So when sitting in our little paint shop movie theatre enjoying some of our snippets of history, we can thank Brian for this. Brian volunteered for this project, and I think you'll all agree that he has done a sterling job. Brian was also responsible for the nifty electrics and displays in the foyer. Thank you, Brian. Now, the Friday volunteers, this group of men and women have worked together alongside Eric from the outset. The men helping to gather native timber from the old buildings, more like denailing, that I've spoken about earlier, helping with the excavation work under the replacement floor, which was a big job. The trailer loads of soil it had built up over the years. You'll see remnants of the old tocha piles in there as you wander through, but they had rotted away to nothing, and it was the rotting floor was sitting on soil. Yeah, where lots of barrow loads of soil were removed. Then the repiling, preparing, erecting and painting of the picket fence. By the way, that picket fence was pulled down by Brother Doug from the A&P Society, and then it was reshaped by Greg Frater and put together by the Friday volunteers and painted as well. Dump runs, tidying up, and many other jobs, too many to mention. Then the women folk have kept the men fed, along with Ian Franklin over the road, who would pop across with some nice scones with jam on from time to time. Most appreciated, Ian. But these women have kept us fed whilst continuing their good work up at the museum complex and helping out when needed at the Coles. They are also responsible for organising the food and refreshments here today. Well done, girls. Many friendships have been made in this time. To the Society Committee and other volunteers that you can see around here in their green shirts today, thank you all for turning out regularly to our monthly meetings and sticking to your regular Sunday volunteer duties all the time, supporting the work that has gone on at the Coles building. So thank you guys as well. And slightly off the subject of the Coles building, just briefly before we have the mayor and then the ribbon cutting, we can now move on to our next project, which is the placing of the Gardner and Yeoman boiler from the Makarora Mill at the entrance to Onga from Highway 50, which will just add another attraction to this wonderful little village. So thanks again, ladies and gentlemen. I now call on Mayor Alex.
Thank you, Dennis. And maybe I could take that responsibility off your shoulders and give me 2 minutes and I'll get to it, okay? Okay. Ina mana ina reo rauranga tirama tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. I think I've probably got 2 jobs today. And the first one is to speak about how important this is in the fabric of Central Hawke's Bay. And when you think about how a community comes together, I see it as a whole number of strands that weave together. And every so often there is a person, there is a group, there is a project that stands out. They bring a glint, they bring a colour, they change the pattern, and they change the face of what that community woven together looks like. And so when the ask came to Central Hawke's Bay District Council to back the Onga Onga Historical Society and this project and their fundraising initiatives, it was an absolute no-brainer. This place, this team of people and this project are changing the fabric of Central Hawke's Bay forever. Building on our history, building on our passions, building on our dedication, and creating something that our children and our grandchildren will know and appreciate to understand our history. And I want to particularly think about the people that have been committed to this for many, many generations to make this come together. And this building is standing here because of a commitment to this place and to this industry over many, many years and many generations. But not just that, this whole Onga Onga community and the leadership of people like Pauline, hey Pauline, and many, many others who have come together to celebrate the history and the culture that is in Onga Onga and build that together with such incredible passion and dedication. And I would like you all to help me thank yourselves and each other as the Onga Onga community for your dedication to this project. Thank you. But in particular, it is very important to acknowledge the group that have become the driving force for the last 3 years in particular. The ones that have driven the fundraising, have driven the expertise, the meticulous attention to everything that needs to happen here on this project. And the Onga Onga Historical Society is an exemplar of what community action looks like and the potential for it. It is groups like this that make our community strong and resilient, and whether it's restoring a Coles factory or looking after each other when there's a disaster and an emergency, this kind of community leadership is what makes us all so much stronger. So please join me in thanking the whole team of the Onga Onga Historical Society. And finally, thank you. I now take on the responsibility. A very large thank you to the passion, leadership and dedication of the leader of this group, Dennis Shaw. Thank you. Never one to expect that anyone is going to thank him, never one to shy away from a challenge, and always one to turn up with a bright, positive attitude, a smile, and we can do this leadership that brings everyone together. And it is my pleasure to thank you particularly from me, from our community and everyone. Dennis, thank you so very much. And with that, I will leave it there. But congratulations to whoever cooked up the weather today. Absolutely perfect combination. Thank you to whoever did that. And thank you for coming together to celebrate this with family, friends, community, and so many people that played a role. This is what strength in Central Hawke's Bay looks like right here in front of us today. So thank you for your time. And I look forward to walking through the building and continuing to celebrate with you all. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Thank you, Alex. Boy, I wish I could ad-lib like that. Tremendous. Thank you very much. Okay, there have been a number of apologies today. Doug and Jerry from the council were unable to make it. Doug, our CEO, he sends his apologies. Mike Coles, who I'm so disappointed for Colesy not being able to be here today, he's unwell. Chris Taylor, she sent an apology, and also Leslie Hogan. I know all those people would have loved to have been here if they could have been. Okay, so now we'll have the ribbon cut, and then after the cutting of the ribbon by Cherry and Eric, we will have a little presentation here, and then we can all just wander on. Wait. And Eric, if you wouldn't mind just coming up here for a sec. Now, Eric, you treasure this. I've said plenty about you, but thanks so much for your effort in getting this across the line. Now I want you to accept this. You can't take it home. It's got to hang in the coals, I'm afraid. But I'd like you to unwrap it now and then hold it up so everyone can see. And read the caption. And the caption reads, Eric Sheltimer, Restorer Extraordinaire. Okay, if you like to start our wander, we'll have... Oh, sorry, Dan.
That's all right. Dennis, I'd like to present this to you to hang in the factory. It's my dad and Uncle Len. And,
Cool, that's so cool.
behind the original, a copy of the original contract of my dad and starting his apprenticeship here. So it says apprenticeship contract on the 6th of February 1938. They started their apprenticeship here, then war broke out and they went to war, and then they came back and finished their apprenticeship. And so it's got my grandfather's signature, a Cole's signature, my dad's signature, and my grandmother's signature all on there. That is rather special, so I'd like you to hang that in, if that's okay. And I think Jill...
What am I needed for?
Your neck. Have you got your passport?
I've handed it
Oh,
in.
you've handed it in.
When Mum and Dad moved into Waipawa. Of course, there was a lot of equipment that Dad had after building in the community for so many years, and we were allowed to take what tools we would like, which we did, as our husbands did. And there were some scope shaves and a few other bits and pieces in a very lovely old antique box. We've admired it on a shelf, never used the tools. They're now here to the factory to admire.
Oh, thanks, girls, and it's so good to see you down here. I mean, I've got fond memories of these two people, in particular George at parties, I remember one occasion, the opening of Tom Easton's woolshed up Wakarara Road, and I was only a little tacker, and I can still see George later on in the evening climbing around the rafters in that woolshed. Fun times they were in what was a great community. Okay, anyone else like to say a few words?
I'd just like to say thank you to Nan and Pop, and that we appreciate them so much and what they do for us. And the fact that they took time out of their lives for how many years? Nearly 6, to restore this for our community.
Thanks, Stevie. Okay, now we'll move on through, shall we?
There's one person in our volunteers that I really have to thank, and that's Dick Shaper, because although all the volunteers are fantastic, you'll go into his workshop and he'll always have a project on the go which has to do with either the museum or with the Coles building. So I think Dick's really deserves credit for all the work he's done.
Brian did bring to my attention that there is a visitor's book over there, and we would really like you to sign it. It's headed for this occasion, so if you could get your name in there, that'd be great. All right, now I know there's lots of others wanting to sit down, so we'll move round the back and indulge in some bubbles, juice, and some nibbles. Thanks, everyone.
This is Sept.